and what's up, everybody? Mr. G with you once again. This is Elite Weather with your weather forecast. I am Mr. G, your meteorologist. Thank you for joining me today. And if you're watching on TikTok or YouTube, feel free to do what you got to do here and leave a follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave your comments and likes and all that good stuff. You know what to do. So anyway, let's jump into the weather forecast today, and we're going to be talking all about severe weather and maybe even the tropics at the end of the video as well. So I'm trying to determine if I got a blurry camera going on here. I think the camera's being a little bit suspicious there. So anyway, as we jump into our first map, here's what the jet stream and the upper atmosphere looks like right now, as we have a nice dip in the jet stream that we're going to be seeing take place and develop further this weekend. It's already coming into play, but this is what we're going to be seeing when we get into Saturday, and a very nice dip in the jet stream over the western U.S. with a high amplitude ridge over the nation's midsection and again over the east. And what that's going to do is set the stage for impulses of energy coming around the base of the trough to develop into mid-latitude storms that we're going to be seeing all kinds of severe weather. Multiple rounds of severe weather that includes tornadoes and hail and damaging winds, heavy rain that can lead to flash flooding, and we're going to be seeing that all up and down the center of the country and throughout the entirety of the Midwest, from the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, down to the Southern Plains and the mid-Mississippi Valley as well. We're going to be seeing that severe weather this week. And I do have a blurry camera, and I don't understand, maybe it's the lighting that's doing it. So, but anyway, so here is the upper air picture that we're going to see on Saturday. And again, we're going to have a dry line set up here across the central and southern plains. So Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas is where we're going to see that dry line set up. And that is the demarcation zone between the moist air coming off the Gulf of Mexico and cold, dry air coming down out of the Rockies. On the backside of this area of low pressure, cold air is coming down out of the Rockies, so that cold air coming down out of the Rockies is very dry. So it warms up as it gets off of the leeward sides of the mountains, but it warms up a bit as it comes across the plains of New Mexico and West Texas. But that air is very dry and heavy, so it meets the wet, moist air here coming off of the Gulf, coming towards the area of low pressure here over the western plains across North Texas, western Oklahoma, and Kansas. We have a Colorado low that's going to be hanging out right there, and that is going to be the demarcation zone between the moist air and drier air coming out of the interior western states. So, and with that, it's going to set up a battle zone here where we're going to be seeing severe thunderstorms that's going to be producing large hail. These are the kind of storms that produce the large hailers, the 2-inch plus size hail, the 75 mile per hour wind event. So we're going to see damaging winds. I don't understand what's going on with the camera, but we're going to be seeing damaging winds up to 75 miles per hour this weekend. Very large hail, some EF2 plus size tornadoes. So big tornadoes, big hail, and damaging winds, heavy rain, and flash flooding. Some areas is going to see as much as 5 or more inches of rain throughout parts of the Midwest for these next rounds of severe weather. But we're going to have isolated severe thunderstorms across the plains today. Again, tomorrow we'll see things become a little bit more numerous tomorrow, more widespread, more scattered. But today we're going to see mainly isolated thunderstorms across the western plains. So get set for all of that action. And our next map, here we go. This is what we're going to be seeing on your Saturday. Again, we're going to see that low pressure center there on the border of Kansas and Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Colorado and Texas. That low is going to sit over several states there at the border of these states. We got our dry line. There's a cold front that extends back towards the west, extending from this low. But we also have a warm front that's going to be lifting up, and this is the warm air coming up from the south, and that's going to be retreating colder air over the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Well, I wouldn't say it's really cold air, but it's cooler than this air, so we got us a warm front. So we have a triple point setup because we have a warm front, a dry line, and a cold front at this low pressure center. So we have what's called a triple point threat area. So that is a classic severe weather setup. I'm still having voice issues, but I find out if I talk slower, then it sounds better. So I'm going to try my best to speak a little slower. So we're going to have our wind shear. So one thing that happens at this low pressure center is we have wind shear. Because we have a dry line, so we have our warm front lifting to the north. We have that moist air coming up off of the Gulf of Mexico. And we have warm air coming up from the Gulf. We have air coming from the southeast toward the northwest. So at the surface, this is our surface winds coming up at the Gulf from the southwest, from the southeast, heading toward the northwest. But then, because of the circulation around the area of low pressure, and we have a cold front that you can see there, that cold front has winds coming from the west, the southwest, and the northwest. So we have winds blowing this way and about 10,000 feet. So we have winds coming from two different convergent. So we have what's called convergence. So we have winds coming from this way at one level, winds coming from this way at another altitude. And those winds are crossing each other, and that creates spin in the atmosphere. That's called wind shear. So wind shear is a key component in tornado formations and also supercell development. Because one significant thing about supercell thunderstorms is that wind shear makes it possible for the updraft in the thunderstorms to remain separate from the downdraft in the thunderstorm. So that way, it's not like a storm where the downdraft smothers the updraft. That's regarding typical thunderstorm. That's what typically happens. But in supercell development, you want the downdraft and the updraft to remain separated so that you have a clear downdraft and a clear updraft. And the updraft keeps the storm rolling. It makes the storm last longer because it's continually being able to be fed by the influx of air and moisture. So we have the supercell thunderstorms, and those are the rotating thunderstorms. So that's what we're going to be looking for, is rotating thunderstorms, and that's what you want to see across the plains, is those rotating thunderstorms. And oftentimes these storms are low precipitation, and if you get underneath a lot of them, you often seem like it doesn't really happen. You just see really spectacular looking clouds, and they look really scary. But but sometimes it seems like there's not a whole lot going on. You just see rather spectacular clouds. But these things produce tornadoes, and they will have the damaging winds. They would need hail and everything else. So they are interesting thunderstorms, to say the least. A sight to see, if I'm being honest, especially across the plain states. The best place to watch thunderstorms is across the high plains. So the Dakotas down through Wyoming, Colorado, eastern Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Those areas, the flat high plains, is the best way to see thunderstorms. Those are the best thunderstorms to see. So on Sunday, what will happen by Sunday, the cold front is essentially going to catch up and overrun the warm front, and it's going to, how can I say that? It's going to encapsulate the warm front. So the warm front is going to get shifted down to the south because it's going to get overrun by the cold front. So then it will be a cold front and warm front scenario where we will see those two interact together, and that's going to lead to more tornadoes, which when we have a cold front focus instead of a dry line storm. The dry line storms can make tornadoes too, but they tend to be weaker tornadoes from the dry line storms. But they tend to be large hail producers and gusty wind producers, because what happens a lot with dry line thunderstorms is because there is so much dry air mixing into the storm that it doesn't often produce heavy rainfall over a larger area. They tend to be low precipitation supercell thunderstorms. They're called a low precip supercell. So we tend to see that along the dry line. But when we get the cold front is when we can see thunderstorms that produce more heavy rainfall. We'll tend to see squall lines. We'll see more linear thunderstorms, and then up around the low we'll see things like mesoscale convective systems, where you have clusters of thunderstorms that begin to rotate around each other, so it creates a localized area of low pressure. Those are called mesos or mesolows. You'll tend to see mesoscale convective complexes, mesoscale convective systems, because they're self-propagating because of the influx of air, and that the fact once they start rotating, that causes the warm drafts and cold drafts. It creates outflow boundaries and downdrafts and microbursts, different things like that. It gets very interesting when you start to see those types of thunderstorms. So that's what we're going to be seeing, especially over the weekend. But between now and Friday and Saturday, we're going to see mostly isolated supercell individual thunderstorms popping up across the plains. But this is what we're going to see for your day today. We're going to see, this is going to be mostly isolated activity. This is going to be isolated thunderstorms. They're going to be very severe, but we're going to see individual cells or smaller cell clusters. And these are often your tornado producers, or single cell through thunderstorms can be your, because they are rotating single cell thunderstorms, but they have the rotating wall clouds. These are the ones where you typically see the rotating wall cloud underneath the storm. Notice where the tornado drops down is from those wall clouds. And we're going to see those types of thunderstorms here. And often they are low precipitation, so we're not really looking for flash flooding to be an issue today. But large hail, so this is going to be large gorilla hail, 2-3 inch diameter hail, big hail, and gusty winds. Those supercell thunderstorms, these low precipitation thunderstorms, often have dry air mixed in. So what happens is the rain falls and evaporates before it hits the ground, because it's not a lot of saturation at the surface. So the precipitation doesn't make it all the way to the ground. You ever looked at a rain cloud and saw virga, where you see the rain fall but then it disappears before it hits the ground? That's called virga, and that's what you see a lot with these high elevated thunderstorms. The lapse rates in these storms are very high, so they tend to be develop higher in the sky than some other types of thunderstorms. So these are this is when we call them elevated thunderstorms, because they develop higher up in the sky. So they look higher. The cloud bases look higher up than sometimes that you see with more low base thunderstorms. So these tend to have less cape at the surface, but more cape at the mid levels and the upper levels. And so you'll see the elevated thunderstorms, and that's what we're going to be looking for today across the plains mostly. So what's going to come with that? And since I just said all of that, all right, so we're going to see strong EF2 tornadoes, especially here in Kansas. So Dodge City, Oakley, Salina, Wichita, we're going to see the higher risk for EF2 or larger tornadoes. But we down here in this darker area, this is where we're going to see the threat for damaging winds. So 70 mile per hour plus damaging winds is going to be the big threat down here around Guthrie, Texas, Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City, and Childress, Oklahoma. Texas, we're going to see the risk here for 75. Now, this whole area could see the risk for that, but this is the greatest threat for that right here in this region. So tornadoes are going to be possible today. Now, mind you, these are going to be mostly weaker tornadoes, but there will be those long rope tornadoes, or what we call they are those, what do you call the spindles? So when you have the old stoves and they have that pipe that goes, stovepipe, yes. Stovepipe tornadoes. I couldn't remember the term. Stovepipe tornadoes. You're going to see those. Rope tornadoes. Maybe some wedge tornadoes in this region right here. This is where we're going to see the EF2 tornadoes. The rope tornadoes can be EF2 or greater, but typically they tend to be weaker. But the stronger tornadoes tend to be the wedge tornadoes, or the ones that are more likely to be EF2, EF3, EF4, or EF5. Those are usually what we tend to see with wedge tornadoes. They tend to be lower to the surface than rope tornadoes and stovepipe, or the tall, skinny tornadoes. They tend to be lower to the ground than those tornadoes. So we're going to see that. And my camera's just frustrating me with this blurriness. I don't understand why it starts doing that every now and then. So we have the damaging wind potential that we're going to see out there today too. So we got a potentially dangerous situation here with this severe weather across the plains. And that is going to be all the way from Nebraska and South Dakota. So Rapid City, Scotts Bluff, and parts of maybe eastern Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. We're going to see the threat here for damaging winds up to over 60 miles an hour, with some isolated storms producing 70 plus miles per hour severe thunderstorms. And we're also going to be seeing that severe threat again tomorrow. We got a level 1 to a level 3 threat for severe weather across the plains of Des Moines, of Iowa, Missouri, eastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas, Minnesota, South Dakota. So right up here is where we're going to see a pretty significant level 3 threat for severe weather for your Friday. And we're going to see that severe. Here's that overall picture. We're going to see those temperatures in the 60s to lower 70s. Still a little bit cool across you see where it's 56 in Chicago, 59 in Columbus, but notice that the warm front hasn't crossed that area yet. But there's not much of a difference in the temperatures south of the warm front than it is north of the warm front. There's about a 10-degree span of temperatures here. So we'll see the slightly warmer temperatures make their way north once that warm front lifts up toward the north into the Great Lakes area in the Ohio Valley. Saturday, more severe weather. It gets kind of stupid on Saturday because that severe weather gets pretty crazy. We're going to see a much larger area, much more in the way of organized thunderstorms, not isolated. We're going to see more scattered to linear squall lines develop on Saturday, because we're going to see the cold front come into play. See, right now we're dealing with the dry line, and that tends to favor isolated, discrete supercells. But with the cold front being the main focus, we're going to see the threat for linear thunderstorms that's going to produce hail and heavy rain. So we might see maybe derecho type thunderstorm setup with 100 plus mile an hour situations with gusty winds out ahead of the storm. And then we can see some severe weather along our warm front. As the warm front lifts into Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan, we're going to be seeing some severe weather along the warm front as well. But heavy rain is going to be mainly the focus over that region. So on Saturday, lots of severe weather across the upper Midwest and the high plains. So from Texas, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Chicago, Green Bay, all the way up to Minneapolis, we're going to see severe thunderstorms being possible this weekend. So our first possible threat of severe weather across my area this weekend is going to take place with our double barrel low pressure centers. A low pressure center up there in Minnesota, and we're going to have another low pressure center here across the plains. Okay, Sundays, more severe weather with heavy rain. Heavy rain, I think, is going to be more of an issue. We're going to see tornadoes as well. We're going to see some hail and damaging winds. But I think the biggest threat here for Sunday, Saturday, and into Sunday is going to be rainfall. So we're going to have gully washers. So thunderstorms that be linear. We're going to see lines and lines of thunderstorms. They're going to be repeated progressive rounds of thunderstorms traveling over the same area. So we're going to see flash flooding be a real threat as we can pick up 5 inches of rain in the red areas here. Again, we're going to talk about that flash flooding Saturday through Sunday. Right here I show Oklahoma and North Texas and Kansas, but we also going to see heavy rain and flooding further to the north near Iowa and Missouri and into Wisconsin and Illinois as well. We're going to see heavy rain that can lead to flash flooding from some of the more organized thunderstorms. Again, here is that rainfall forecast Thursday, today through Sunday, and this orange here is 3 to 5 inches of rain. See that? 3 to 5 inches. So we're going to look at a lot of rainfall falling all the way up into Minnesota, the Twin Cities. Minneapolis is where I live in St. Paul, right next to Minneapolis, right here, and we're going to be looking at 3 inches of rain at least for my area. So for Wisconsin, Minnesota, all the way down to Missouri, Arkansas, North Texas, we're going to be seeing that severe thunderstorms. Still got snow in the picture as well. If you look at here, check this out. Into Colorado, Denver is there, but if you look to the west of Denver, we're still going to see snow. So there's going to be snow in parts of Denver and to parts of northern Colorado as well. So we're not even done talking about snow in parts of Colorado as we look at a very wet weekend to shape up here across a good portion of the Midwest. Some of that rain is going to even start to head into the Ohio Valley. So Detroit and Cleveland, Indianapolis, you guys are going to start to see some rain. But you're going to look at less than half an inch for you folks. But if you're here across the central part of the country, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, all the way up to Minnesota and Wisconsin, lots of rainfall this weekend. So get ready for that. It's going to be a soaker out there. So the tropics, the hurricane season is going to start in about a month or so, a little over a month. So June 1st is the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season. It also includes the Pacific on the U.S. side, closer to the U.S., because on the Asian side they're called typhoons, but on our side they're called hurricanes off the coast of Mexico. We're going to see the hurricane season start April 1st, but we already have this system here, but the hurricane center is no longer tracking it. They don't think it's going to do anything significant, and typically nothing starts out there anyway. Most of the action starts here in the Caribbean there. So we're not looking out towards that way for anything significant. And if anything does form out there that far away, it's going to head out towards Europe. So we're not worrying about that guy yet. No tropical development is expected in the next 7 days, but it is time to start watching the tropics as the hurricane season open and gets closer. Again, here's a look at that little piece of activity out there over the North Atlantic off the coast of Africa. There it is. There's not much going on out there right now. So that is your weather forecast. My name is Mr. G. Thank you for watching this video today, and I hope it was educational and entertaining. I hope you were able to learn a little bit about how severe weather develops and what happens and what we're going to expect this week. So I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day and a great night tonight, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.